guys, Jay. So yeah, I'm just working on this new project that I had the privilege, honestly, of actually being able to work on. Seriously, I have to say that Centurions is one of my absolute all-time favorite properties of the 1980s. Seriously, such imagination was put into this, and I seriously, I haven't seen Sky in like forever. Seriously, this is the first time I've been able to hold on to one of these Centurions in my hands ever since I was a kid. I think the last time I saw this guy was sometime in the late the early 2000s, and after that I lost track of what happened to them, and yeah, they're pretty much gone right now. So this to me is an absolute privilege, and I wanted to share that moment with you guys. So join me today, guys, as I take a look at the Centurions, starting off with Max Ray. Hey guys, Jay, welcome back to the channel. Oh my god, everybody, this this is a review of something which has been, it's been a part of my life for years. It really, really has been. And honestly, I am absolutely thrilled and privileged, honestly, to be able to see these guys again after so many decades. This is just ridiculous. Oh my god, guys, if you don't already know what's going on, I am going to be reviewing the original, yes indeed, the original Centurions from Kenner Toys. Guys, these guys have been a part of my life for so many years, for at least the better part of 30 years. The reality is that these guys, when they first came on the scene, I remember first seeing them at Canadian Tire, which is a retailer here in Canada, and oh my gosh, I remember when they first captured my imagination just by the bright colors that they displayed themselves in. It was these exact boxes that you see right in front of us. These boxes here that really captured my imagination as a child. I saw these on the top shelf of Canadian Tire during Christmas of that year. I believe it was in 1985. It was ridiculous. We just come off of successful runs of Thundercats and Transformers and Master Universe, and those Transformers was technological. It really was, but the other two, really popular series that I was into were barbarian kind of, fantastic magic kind of series, with Master Universe, and which melded technology and sorcery. And then we also had Thundercats, which arguably had the exact same thing. So it was one of those things where the next level of cartoons that were going to become popular were going to be technology-based. Silverhawks pretty much took over the slot from Thundercats, and shortly thereafter, we got something completely different. We got the Centurions. And here they are in their glory. Obviously, they're not intact. They're not mint on card examples. These have been well loved, and the box themselves have been surprisingly well taken care of, for their age. And, we're going to go through each and every one of them separately. First one I wanted to go through, of course, is Max Ray. Then we're going to continue on with Jake Rockwell, and we're going to finally finish off with Ace McCloud. This is just a wonderful privilege. I really want to thank friend of the channel, Sean. Sean, my brother, thank you so much for lending these to me. I really can't tell you how thrilled I am to be able to have this opportunity to really just take a deep dive and examine these wonderful examples of the Centurions in closer detail. This is going to be absolutely amazing. Guys, hang on to your hats. We're going to take a look at Kenner Centurions. Let's take a look. Alright guys, so the first one we're going to take a look at is Max Ray, the leader of the Centurions. Alright everybody, here we are with the leader of the Centurions, Max Ray. He of course is the Sea Operations Specialist, which comes with the Cruiser Assault Weapon Systems. Guys, this is crazy. I remember when I first saw this guy on the shelves at Canadian Tire, it blew me away. The illustrations here on the bottom were just absolutely ridiculous. It's hard to see here in the light, but if I tilt it just slightly, you can probably see, yep, you can see Max here launching his torpedo. You can see here his little ray gun is actually firing as well. And the configuration that was shown on the TV show was definitely not the same way they did it on the toy. But that was the beauty of Centurions. You could mix and match their weapon systems any which way you wanted. It's absolutely crazy. We can even see a small shark here, some depth charges which have been activated. We can even see some seaweed, some fishes. It's a wonderful green motif, very much matching his overall look. If we take a look at the side profile here, we can see that there's been quite a bit of damage. But honestly, considering how old this box is, it really has held up really well over time. The Centurions logo here, very, very well designed. I love the graphic design portions of the overall box and the look of it. Somebody actually retaped this with industrial tape, which is, yeah, it's unfortunate, but this is the way people took care of their toys back then. They actually didn't. Over here, we can see that Max Ray, Sea Operations Specialist and Cruiser Assault Weapon Systems. We see the actual action figure here with a certain configuration. Obviously, whoever put this one together didn't really know which direction the fin should go, because really it should go in the direction that the water is flowing, not the opposite direction. We can see that he has his turbines here, the backpack with the aqualung along with the torpedo launcher, as well as his underwater laser gun, which is actually attached to his shoulder, not to his forearm. Again, very, very interesting idea. It says here that Mode 1, Surface. So this was the surface mode. Max speeds to the water surface. So this is when you want to actually get to the water as quickly as possible, according to the schematic. The second set here is pretty much the exact same configuration. I don't understand why they're making it as if it's something completely different. However, we can see here that they've actually put the turbine right on his foot. The bottom of the sole of his foot. That's kind of neat. Wouldn't have expected that myself. And then here it says Mode 1, Sea Attack. That's interesting. It's still the same mode, according to this, but max attacks at 20,000 leagues. Very, very cool. I do love the way they actually did, the overlay for photographs back then. It's hilarious. If we spin it around again, we can actually see the back portion of the box. This is a wonderful look at the way action figures were back then. They actually had small profiles which were attached with the figures themselves. This really gives a background to the character and their speciality in terms of like how one is from the air, one is from the sea, and one is from the land. So here we go. Centurions, PowerXTreme, Max Ray, Sea Operations Specialist, and Cruiser Assault Weapon System. Specialty, Sea Operations Profile. Unrivaled for his skill on the water, Max is a member of the most formidable fighting force, Centurions. Level-headed and a good strategist, Max plans a well-coordinated attacks. As a college student at age 14, Max built his own nuclear-powered submarine. What the heck are you talking about? He is the only person ever to water ski across the Atlantic for exercise. Just ridiculous. Max regularly swims from California to Hawaii and back. Obviously, he is at the top of his game. We can already tell that Max is one of the most well-rounded athletes in the world. It's absolutely incredible. Assault weapon systems, helmet, power backpack, repulsor cannon, hydro missile launcher, twin hydro thrusters, keel-fin, and radar repulsor. Holy crap, that's crazy. We have the Kenner copyrights there. This particular figure was actually made from its division of Kenner Products in Cincinnati, Ohio. Holy crap. The figure is made in Hong Kong and accessories are made in Mexico. That is something I never expected. That's interesting. Proof for purchase with the UPC, Centurions, Max Ray. If we switch over the figure to the last side, we see that Max Ray, Sea Operations Specialist, and Cruiser Assault Weapon Systems. This is the configuration which I like to call the Max Sandwich. Literally, they've sandwiched Max in between all of his weapons. He has his missile launcher here. He's got his torpedo at the top. The laser turret, the actual aqualung is on the front of him. I remember seeing this as a kid. I'm like, what the heck is that? His thrusters, the turbines themselves are all strapped to his lower back, and his keel fin is actually all the way at the top. Just ridiculous. Mode 2, Turbo Thrust. Max launches an assault from the ocean floor. This is crazy. Guys, let's not waste any more time. Let's take Max out of the package and have a better look at him. Honestly, it's amazing this box has survived for so long. Let's just face it. Most kids just threw the boxes away. The parents too, because they didn't want as much clutter. So bravo to anybody who actually kept their boxes in such good condition all the way back then. And whoever had this, man, it's gone through some rough times, but for the most part, it's still intact. So, yeah, thank you very much, honestly. And Sean, brother, thank you again for letting me review this. It's absolutely amazing. Whew. There he is, everybody. Oh my god. Max Ray, the leader of the Centurions. Let's bring him for a closer look. This is absolutely incredible. Man, it's been forever since I've seen this guy intact. My own version of Max Ray, he's been long gone, and he had a lot of damage on him. His left arm had detached. That's the one thing about these Centurion figures. They weren't made of they were not made of the greatest plastic, to be perfectly honest with you. So yeah, they tend to be very, very brittle, especially in between the joints of the arms and of the legs. So it's not uncommon to actually see a lot of Centurions missing their limbs. That's the really sad part about this. Their joints as well were very, very brittle. So that's why in a lot of cases you'll actually be seeing pieces of Max actually, chipped off. It's really unfortunate. And then the gimmick, the biggest gimmick of the Centurions, of course, was the plug-in features with all of their weapon systems. So oftentimes, especially in the case of this particular figure, you'll find that a lot of their weapon systems actually break. As you can see right here with this one in particular, this thruster here, it actually broke off. You can actually see that. So it's really quite unfortunate that these things happen. Luckily, I happen to have a spare downstairs. I was really quite fortunate enough to have that for this particular review. So we can see here that both of his thrusters are intact now. The sculpting is incredible, actually, especially for a toy of that age. We can actually see a lot of the beautiful ribbing on the black portions of Max here, which differentiates from the other Centurions. Like for example, Ace, he's got more of a flight suit looking design, whereas Jake, he's got more of a rough and tumble kind of land design. This is the way the characters themselves were actually designed. The weapon systems themselves are wonderfully sculpted. They have all this rich detail, all the wonderful designs. We can see on the Aqualung, it's got so many different details. I always wondered what this arrow meant. I actually did not know what that meant when I was a kid. Still don't, actually. If somebody can explain to me what that arrow means, but does it mean that this is the way you should be installing this weapon system? I don't know. It's interesting that they don't actually have any stickers here at the bottom for the actual turbines on the Aqualung. I always wondered, if I should color that as a kid, but I never ended up doing that. I always thought that these things were just so cool on their own. It was just so much fun. We can see here a little bit of the action feature detail, and we're going to get to that in a little bit. But this portion does rotate along with the center console peg on the middle, and there's a reason why that happens. Let me just demonstrate that a little bit here. If we take the fin, the dorsal fin, right here, we can actually rotate it. You can actually hear the ratchets going all the way around. And what that does is you can actually see on the back here, it's rotating as well. Now, we'll talk about the action feature when we get to that portion in a second. You can see the actual laser turret here. Wonderful stuff. I do love the way it's designed. Has additional peg holes for stacking, which we did see on the packaging itself. And, of course, the wonderful turbo thrusters, which we'll get some more detail here. I'll just bring in the other ones. It's a lot easier to do. Yeah, we can see the wonderful rich detail in there for the intake. And, of course, the wonderful intake and the wonderful thrusters on the back. The dorsal fins on these are also well sculpted. Beautiful, beautiful stuff. Then there's Max's helmet. I'm just going to turn this a little bit so we can see it better. There we go. Oops, sorry guys. Max's helmet is really well sculpted. And this was a really big thing in the 80s. Yet the one thing that they really wanted to highlight was their differences in their specialities. So Max being an underwater specialist, you can see his helmet is sculpted much more like a diver's helmet. It really has that shape of like a what they used to call frogmen back in the day. We can see the logo for the Centurions on top. We see some ribbing here at the top, which could signify that this is to help with the breathing apparatus. The wraparound feature here on the helmet, wonderful details. This was been well played with. You can see some scuffing at the top where, honestly, whoever had the Centurion, took care of them very, very well, but at the same time didn't mind being a little bit more rough and tumble with them. So it's absolutely, absolutely amazing. If we take off Max's helmet, we can actually see Max's face. There he is. Oh my gosh. People have compared him to Tom Selleck. they've compared him to so many different... Oh, I hate to say it this way. It's just so disingenuous. It's just so disrespectful. That porn stash. Yes. He's got the 80s porn stash. Just crazy. Seriously, back then, this clean-cut look, with the slick back, with the slicked combed hair, the Clark Kent kind of style, it really was, a staple. But that porn stash, yeah, that became infamous with just being it really did. But Max wore it well, I think so. He looks absolutely amazing. Love the sculpt here. We can see a lot of detail in his hair, the waviness in it. His overall facial sculpt is, very, very indicative of Max Ray, and very much the way he looked like in the show, so that's awesome. And of course, he's got some wonderful details on the side with his ears. And even the head, it doesn't pivot as much, but it does have an up and down feature, almost as if he could kind of look up as far as he could, try and propel himself through the water. So that's actually very, very cool. So guys, let's take a closer look and have a deeper dive into how the accessories attach onto each of these figures. And here he is, everybody. This is Max Ray. This is exactly the way he would look once you took him out of the package. All the weapon systems and the accessories themselves were not attached to Max. That was up to you to begin playing. It was a wonderful way to introduce kids to the play features of Max and, of course, the rest of the Centurions themselves. Now that we don't have the weapon systems and the accessories attached, we can see all the plug holes for each of the weapon systems themselves. This is a wonderful sculpting detail on all the sides. I love the way they have these, I don't know what they are, circuitry or, different patterns here on the legs. Obviously, Max comes with this rib detail here, which is probably to help him swim through the water. We also have, the shoulder details here. We can even plug in weapon systems all the way into the top of his traps, along with the shoulder details here, the bicep plug details, and the forearm details. And of course, he's got multiple ports all along his legs. This was amazing in terms of, the sculpting for the figure itself. I do love the way they put the amazing amount of the rich detail into the back, into the front. This wasn't just a generic figure. Each of the Centurions is actually very unique, and that's very important. And we'll see that as the figures continue to come through this review. I do love all the wonderful details here. The colors are just so striking. Look at those neon green for the most part. It just looks absolutely wonderful. Deep blacks. Now they're a little bit more on the grayer side now that they've faded a bit, but here with high definition cameras, we can actually see what it sort of looked like back in the day. Beautiful stuff. This one has been well played with. We can see a lot of scuffing here. This was played with in the dirt. It was played with, in the school ground, and probably in the bathtubs as well. Seriously, this guy was really, really well loved.
So, I do have to say that, basically, this is nothing more than a glorified Ken doll. When you really break it down, he doesn't have that much articulation at all, and his waist doesn't move. He has a couple of joints here at the legs and the elbows, but his head doesn't really move too particularly well, and his pivoting head, which I can't do right now, it's stiff and not very cooperative in any of these regards. However, his overall sculpt and the way he looks is just absolutely incredible. So, and then there's the port gimmick. So that really did make everything stand out.
Let's take a look at some of the additional accessories and the weapon systems. Let's have a closer look at the Hydro Missile itself. So this is the main arsenal, very heavy artillery weapon included with Max. It is the Hydro Missile along with the missile launcher itself. Now, this has a action feature, which obviously back in the day, everything used to fire in terms of action figure toys. Yeah. So basically, you would take the missile itself, you would plug it in here, stick the peg into the hole. Yeah, there's a joke in there somewhere, and then you would just push forward to launch it again. Perfect. Wonderful attention to detail in terms of the action feature. I really do like this. If we take a closer look at the missile itself, it really has these fins which allow it to propel itself through the water. The tip is actually made of a different material than the plastic here. This is more of a rubberized plastic right here. And yeah, it's a beautiful design. Obviously, the launching feature here is just to keep it in place. Wonderful. And then the launcher itself, man, look at the rich detail here. All the ribbing on this side, the sort of techno jargon, just an overall design aesthetics here that make it look so futuristic and so wonderfully designed. They really have, in terms of form versus function, this is definitely more of an aesthetic look rather than more practical, for sure. We can see the two different types of pegs that are included here. This is more of a positioning peg, which actually keeps it straight. And this is the peg which actually holds it into the figure itself. Wonderful. The actual launcher button itself, it's set on that spring and actually releases it with a bit of tension. So yeah, wonderful. This is an amazing design. And it really is, when you think about it, pretty incredible that it still works, almost 30 years later. Amazing. Let's take a look at the next accessory. The next accessory we're going to take a look at is the aqualung that comes with Max. This is obviously how Max breathes underwater. It is your standard aqualung in terms of the oxygen tanks that are attached to it, but it definitely is designed for the Centurions themselves. It has that wonderful action feature, which is this turning pivoted gear. We can see it turning right here. It's kind of hard to see it that way, but it does actually turn. Let's just plug in something to make it easier to turn. So we'll plug in the actual fin back here, and then you can actually see it turning. This is a wonderful action feature, and you'll see it in action a little. You'll see it working in a little bit. The overall sculpt on this is wonderful. I really do like the way the designers took some time to actually think about what else to put here. We actually do notice that there's a missing peg here, but that's I suppose it's intentional. They actually had this arrow, which again, I said, I have no idea what it's there for. But you can attach any number of the weapon systems on here. As you saw, I just attached the dorsal fin. Lots of detail here. Not a lot of paint, though. It literally is just, the bare plastic itself. And I was expecting when I was a kid to see some thrusters here, but they never did end up adding them. We see here, of course, the positioning pegs as well as the plug-in pegs, which hold it into Max himself, and of course the gimmick gear here as well. They even added some wonderful little details here, which you will never see once you put this on. Very, very cool.
It's really interesting. I have to say, these weapon systems themselves, they're not that unique in terms of their overall sculpts. I mean, this is just a diver's, aqualung, and this just seems to be like a regular torpedo. But the way this all worked together is the way they joined, with Max, and then the mixing and matching feature really made additional play value for the entire line. Cruiser could connect with depth charger on multiple levels, and that's really where everything started to become magical. And that actually is exactly why Centurions did so well, or actually did not do as well as it could have. But honestly, for those of us who did have the privilege of actually having these toys, it really was an amazing thing to see back in 1986. I mean, who doesn't love firing toys?
All right, let's move on to the next accessory. The dorsal fin is a very important item in terms of being able to swim and navigate through the water. Originally, this is probably going to be, movable, which is why they actually have part of that gimmick for the gear system that they've incorporated into Max. But there's another reason why that's there, and I will show you how that gimmick works. I keep alluding to it, but we will get there eventually, guys. It has its own ray gun, which is attached to the dorsal fin up here. I love the sculpting details on this. Really very minimalistic in terms of what it looks like. They didn't put too much detail in there, but it's just enough that it can really, spark the imagination. This is a wonderful addition to the set, and I'm really glad that it is. I will say that it is just kind of a tad too big. When you actually see it on Max, it sort of does have a kind of ridiculous, attitude towards it. It's just really quite ridiculous. But when you think about it, a ship with a dorsal fin is actually quite big. So, there is a bit of realism in there, as such as it is. And here we have Max's repulsor cannon. This is one of his signature weapons in the series. He uses it multiple times throughout the show. And yeah, this is a wonderful design. It almost has a shape of a submarine in and of itself. Over time, the gun tends to sag, which is very normal. But if you're so inclined and if you really want to be brave, you can heat this up and bend it back into shape. It really is that type of malleable. It has a wonderful sculpt. Again, very minimalistic in its overall design. 3 additional plugs on the top, so you can put any number of different weapon systems and accessories on there. And of course, the plug feature right there. Wonderful designs. Here we have the 2 thrusters, which Max comes with. They are wonderfully designed. I do like the way the sculpting is on the inner portions of the actual thrusters themselves. The turbines in there really look very, very well detailed. This is stuff that you don't really think about a lot, but it really just adds that level of complexity and detail that you normally wouldn't see in action figures and toys at the time. I love the little details that they have here on the sides, as well as the dorsal fins, which are incorporated into the turbines themselves. They look absolutely incredible. As I said, these things, especially the plastic they were made from, are actually very, very brittle. So, they tend to have... The tendency is for them to break, as you can see here. I mentioned this earlier in the episode, but you can see clearly that is broken compared to the way it is here. The peg itself has clearly been snapped off, and that's one of the dangers with this type of toy. Over time, it's not made of the most durable plastic, and over the years it just becomes more and more brittle, leading to possible snappage. But if you take care of your toys and you don't play with them too often, they can survive, as is the case with this particular figure. The very last accessory is, of course, the signature piece of Max Ray. It is his signature helmet. This, of course, is what identifies Max as, well, Max. His helmet is, of course, as I said earlier, sculpted in fashion of a, frogman. I guess that's the easiest way to call him. You can see the shape is very indicative of a diver. The helmet on the top of his head, it has this rib detail up here, which I mentioned earlier. The Centurion symbol, which of course is a very big indicator as to which group that they're actually affiliated with. They are an international hero association, if you will, so they're allowed to go anywhere, but they still have to be identified. We can see the wonderful details here for the rest of the helmet. I do love all these rib details, and it's not even clear what that is. I don't know if it's just to protect the back of his head, but it looks so amazing. The inner details are very, very minimal, obviously, because they're just there to cushion against Max's head, and we can actually see some paint rub on the inside there. Unfortunate. Luckily, it doesn't seem to have really affected the back of Max's head. He doesn't have a bald spot. Very good, Max. All right, guys, let's put all the weapon systems on Max, and we can take a quick look at his overall action feature. I would like to talk about articulation with Max. The reality, though, is he's so brittle. Just trying to manipulate his arms, we can see just how stiff they are. I'm really putting some pressure on there. So, unfortunately, I will not be able to show you too much articulation on Max. Suffice it to say, his elbow does bend to a 90-degree angle, but that's about as much as it goes. I'll try to bend it right now, see if it actually goes for us. Yes, it does. That's about the most you're going to get off of Max on this particular regard. His knee also does the same thing with a 90-degree pivot. I'm being very gentle here. Beautiful. The legs do have a spread feature. They actually spread out a little bit, and we can see that right there. I'm not going to do too much there, but that's about as far as his legs will splay. The arms, I'm really not willing to rotate them, but they do go a full 360 rotation, and they will spread out to a certain degree. Again, they're so stiff right now, and I really don't want to, but you can see them. They actually come out about to here. That's about as far as they will go. That's all I can do for the articulation. The other thing that I can say is that his head pivots up and pivots down to about that much. So you really can't get too much, in terms of if you want to actually glide through the water. It's kind of like you really can't get his neck to articulate that much. His head does rotate. There you can see it right there. Again, I really don't want to do too much with this. He is very, very stiff, and he's very, 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 very old. So yeah, let's continue and try to put together his weapon systems. This is going to be fun. Crystal, beam down, cruiser, weapon systems for Max. PowerXTreme! And there you have him, guys. This, of course, is Max Ray with the Cruiser weapon system. I do have to say this is one of the most iconic toys of the 1980s. But let's not forget, it does actually have an action feature associated with him. So let's take a quick look at that before we end the episode. If we detach the actual Cruiser missile from his forearm, the rotational gear is actually right here. It's hard to see, but it actually is there. If we attach it to the rotational gear here on the back of the Aqualung, like so, it activates the play gimmick feature, if you will. And what you want to do is you want to rotate the dorsal fin so that the missile will auto-fire. This was a lot of fun back in the day. Let's see if we can get it to work. So if I just rotate it a little bit. Honestly, I can't believe that worked. It really was a hit and miss kind of situation that was actually going to do a thing. So let me show you exactly what happened there again. So if we put the missile back in, and we actually go ahead and tilt this a little bit again. If I rotate this, if you watch closely, and I rotate this, you can actually see it will fire the actual missile itself. Watch this. Sometimes it's better just to hold on to it because it needs that friction. Freaking-credible. I can't believe that actually worked. So guys, there he is, Max Ray with his Cruiser weapon system. It really is an amazing toy to have existed this long, along with what's left of his overall box.
Guys, this has been an absolute pleasure being able to review Max Ray, one of my all-time favorite Centurions. Man, it's been like 20 years since I've been able to see this guy, and actually having an entire weapon system with him, this is just incredible, honestly. I want to give a huge shout out to Sean for letting me borrow this figure. Man, Sean, thank you so much for this, brother. It just brings back so many memories, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. Guys, he's not the best figure, out of all the toys that have ever been released. But honestly, the gimmick is just so wonderful. Being able to create new weapon systems for these figures and attach them at any time, and being able to mix and match, and of course the launching feature that comes with them. So great, honestly. What an imagination that the creators over at Kenner had back in the day. Freaking incredible. Well, guys, if you enjoyed this episode, please do leave me a like. It really does help me out. I hope you guys enjoyed it. And if you did, please leave the comments in the comment section below and let me know that you want more of these episodes so that I can do them for you. Guys, if you enjoyed watching this episode, please consider subscribing to the channel. It really does help us out and lets YouTube know that we're doing a good job and you guys enjoy our work. So, guys, after this, I'm going to do 2 more reviews. Obviously, one for Jake Rockwell and then the finale with Ace McCloud. I hope you guys will enjoy those episodes as they're released. Well, guys, as always, thank you very much for watching. PowerXTreme, everybody. PowerXTreme. Geek proud.
I want to give a huge shout out to all my Patreon and channel member supporters. RyRackCan33, Old IT Guy, Princess Cagley, John Joker, Michael Traverso, Christopher Herndon, Snell World, Thomas Meyer, Budrick Porter, and Joseph Michaels. Thank you for all your support, everybody. It really means a lot to me and really does help the channel to keep going.